Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something we all think we know, plastic. But what if the story we've been told, especially about recycling, isn't the whole truth?
Exactly. It's a narrative that's been, built up over decades, carefully constructed, actually.
Yeah.
And the goal, well, partly it seems, to shift the focus away from the source and onto us, the consumers, all while sales keep going up.
It's kind of woven into everything, isn't it? Our habits, how we shop, what we feel guilty about.
It really is, without us even noticing sometimes.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Why did plastic take over? What's the real environmental cost? And crucially, how was this recycling myth built? And then what can we actually do that makes a difference?
Right. Let's dive in.
First off, we have to acknowledge plastic is amazing in a way, from an engineering standpoint. I mean, it's cheap, it's light, it's incredibly durable. Think about it. Buildings, cars, phones, medical devices,
Yeah.
It's everywhere for good reasons.
Absolutely. It's a polymer, right? These long chains of molecules, monomers, like proteins or DNA or natural polymers, PVC pipes, synthetic polymers. It's a chemical marvel, no doubt.
But that's the flip side, isn't it? That very durability, the strong bonds that make it useful.
That's precisely the problem. Nature has an incredibly hard time breaking it down. There are some bacteria, some fungi, maybe some worms that can nibble at it, but it's painfully slow. It just persists.
And when you say slow, we're talking serious timescales here.
Yeah.
Like a plastic water bottle, 450 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Imagine Hippocrates tossing one. It'd only just be starting to decompose now.
That puts it in perspective.
Or a plastic bag from, say, Ibn Sina back in 1021, still here, completely intact.
Unbelievable.
And straws, 200 years. We've all seen those awful pictures of turtles.
Heartbreaking.
Even your toothbrush this morning. Parts of it could still be around in, 25, 21?
It's a legacy we don't really think about. And the sheer amount. It's staggering. It's literally covering the planet. You mentioned the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, 1.6 million square kilometers. That's
Right.
about 3 times the size of France. Or Turkey, you mentioned.
Yeah, enormous. And it goes deep, too. Plastic found at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, 12,000 meters down.
And there's this whole issue of waste export, right? Wealthier nations shipping their plastic problem off to poorer countries.
Turkey, Vietnam, Malaysia, places that become dumping grounds. It's exporting the environmental cost.
Yeah, it's a huge inequality issue built into the plastic life cycle.
But here's where it gets maybe even more concerning. It's not just the big pieces of trash. When plastic does start to break down, it doesn't vanish. It just becomes smaller. Microplastics.
Right, and these tiny particles get everywhere.
Yeah.
Air, water,
Yeah.
they travel much more easily.
So what does that mean for us? For our health?
Well, that's the worrying question. There was that recent study finding microplastics in human placentas, even in developing babies.
That's disturbing.
It is. And we're seeing it in the food chain, too. You mentioned a Turkish study.
Yeah, finding microplastics in loads of fish mullet, sea bream, plus shrimp, and even 91% of stuffed mussels. Things people eat regularly.
So it's not just out there in the ocean. It's potentially coming back to us on our plates.
And it's not just the physical pieces. There's the chemical threat, too. Scratching plastic, heating it up, leaving things in it for ages. It can leach chemicals.
Things like DEHP, diethylhexyl phthalate,
Yeah.
and BPA, bisphenol A.
Nasty stuff. Linked to health problems like cancer, and they can mess with hormones. DPA mimics estrogen, right?
Exactly, endocrine disruptors. That's why there was such a fuss about BPA in baby bottles, though thankfully that's less common now in many products.
Yeah.
Still, it's a risk with many plastics.
Okay, so given all these downsides, the persistence, the microplastics, the chemicals, why are we still swimming in this stuff? This is where the big lie comes in, as you called it.
It really is, and you have to connect it back to the source. Plastic is overwhelmingly a byproduct of petroleum.
Right. About 4% of global oil extraction goes into making plastics. Same culprit as usual, really.
Yeah, and historically, after it was first produced way back in 1869, it just got cheaper and easier to make. Then World War II basically supercharged the industry. The government forced collaboration, created this huge capacity. And afterwards, these big oil and chemical companies had a lot of power and, well, a lot of plastic to sell.
So they marketed it like crazy.
Millions and millions spent to make it seem essential, indispensable.
And they even shifted the perception, right? Things that could be reused
Yeah.
suddenly became single use.
That's a key part. Initially, people did reuse durable plastic things, but the industry pushed this idea, throw it away, buy another one.
Like the baby bottle example, advising tossing them after one use. which we now know is often totally unnecessary.
But it drove sales.
Yeah.
Which leads to the obvious question.
Did they know? Did they know the environmental cost?
The evidence points to yes, absolutely. But the system, it rewards profit maximization, shareholder value. There wasn't really a strong financial incentive to prioritize the environment back then, or even now, arguably.
Until people started noticing, the 60s and 70s, the rise of environmentalism.
Exactly. Earth Day, 1970, 20 million people in the U.S. protesting.
Yeah.
That put real pressure on these companies. They couldn't ignore the piles of plastic waste anymore.
So they had a choice. Invest massively in finding genuinely eco-friendly alternatives, or
invest a lot less money in a PR campaign. A campaign built around a convenient lie. Plastic is recyclable.
it was cheaper to manage perception than to actually solve the problem.
Pretty much. And it worked astonishingly well. People felt better using plastic if they thought it could just be recycled.
And then came the masterstroke, the recycling symbol.
Yes, 1988. They lobbied, successfully, to get laws passed requiring that chasing arrows symbol with a number inside on all plastic products.
They took a generic symbol, meaning recyclable, and basically co-opted it.
Making it look like everything with the symbol was easily recyclable, which just isn't true.
So those numbers, 1 through 7, they don't mean this is recyclable.
Not necessarily at all. They're resin identification codes. They just tell you what type of plastic it is.
Like #1, PET, the water bottles.
Right. Or #2, HDPE, milk jugs, detergent bottles, heavier stuff.
#3 is PVC. Pipes, some containers.
#4, LDPE, like plastic wrap grocery bags. #5, PP, yogurt cups, harder bottles.
#6 is polystyrene, styrofoam, basically.
And #7 is just other, often things with BPA, polycarbonates, a mixed bag.
But the crucial point was, most people don't know the difference. They just see the arrows.
Precisely. You see the symbol, you put it in the bin, you feel you've done your part. Problem solved, right?
And the industry knew this. There was that quote from the former head of the Plastic Industry Society.
Larry Thomas, yeah. He basically admitted it.
Yeah.
If the public thinks recycling works, then they won't worry about the environment.
Wow. It's like openly saying it.
It's a classic tactic, really. Shift the blame. Make it the individual's responsibility to sort the mess rather than the producer's responsibility not to make the mess in the first place.
And the actual recycling rates bear this out, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. That 8.9% figure, that's the most optimistic estimate of plastic collected for recycling that actually gets turned into something new.
So over 90% doesn't get recycled, even if we put it in the right bin.
Largely, yes. Most types of plastic just aren't economically or technically viable to recycle. Only really #1 PET and #2 HDPE get recycled with any regularity.
And even those, they can't be recycled infinitely like glass or metal.
Not at all. Plastic degrades each time it's reprocessed. You can maybe downcycle it once or twice, turn a bottle into fiberfill or something, but then that's usually it. It loses its integrity.
And it's often just cheaper to make new plastic from oil anyway.
That's the brutal economic reality. Internal industry documents even admit collected plastics often have no meaningful use, and making virgin plastic will likely forever remain more profitable.
It makes you wonder what else they knew. You mentioned those Exxon and Shell reports.
Yeah, internal reports from the 80s and 90s that accurately predicted the effects of CO2 emissions on global warming. They knew, but, well, business as usual continued. Maximize profits.
So, okay, this is pretty sobering. What does it mean for us trying to do the right thing? That 8.9% is still something, right?
It's better than zero, for sure. But we have to be realistic about its limitations. And remember, even that small percentage relies on the plastic being clean and properly sorted. A greasy pizza box with plastic in it, forget it. Mixed plastics, usually not worth sorting.
So where does it go then, if not recycled?
Incineration, which releases pollutants, or landfill, or worse, dumped into the environment, ending up in rivers and oceans.
Okay. So if recycling isn't the silver bullet we thought it was, what's the real answer?
It really comes down to the classic hierarchy, but with a different emphasis. Reduce and reuse. Those have to be paramount.
Reduce the amount of plastic we consume in the first place?
Exactly. And reuse what we do have as much as possible. Recycling is, realistically, the last resort, and a flawed one at that.
So practically speaking, what are the alternatives?
Well, choosing materials like glass, steel, ceramic whenever you can. They often last longer and are genuinely more recyclable.
Reusing plastic bags you already have instead of taking new ones.
Definitely. And that whole paper versus plastic thing at the checkout, it's not as simple as paper being the good option.
Right. Paper is still a polymer, resource intensive to make, doesn't always get recycled effectively either.
Sometimes paper bags generate even more waste by weight. The best option is usually a reusable cloth bag you use hundreds, even thousands of times.
Okay, good point. What about specific plastic types to avoid?
Generally, try to steer clear of #3 PVC and #6 polystyrene. They're rarely recycled and can contain harmful chemicals.
And #7, the other category.
Be cautious. If it doesn't specifically say BPA-free, it's often best to assume it might contain BPA, especially for food containers.
Buying in bulk can help too, right? Less individual packaging.
If you can, yes, it makes a big difference.
And if you have to use plastic, stick to #1 and #2.
They have the best chance of being recycled, yes. And #2 HDPE items are often quite durable and can be reused multiple times before recycling. But here's the really critical thing, I think. We can all do these individual actions, and they do matter, they add up, but they won't solve the climate crisis or the plastic crisis on their own.
Because the scale of the problem is just too big.
Exactly. This narrative, focusing solely on our recycling habits, is, frankly, a convenient distraction for the massive corporations and the governments that enable them. They created this system.
So what's our role beyond our own bins?
Applying pressure, supporting environmental groups. They're not just, hippies. They're fighting for everyone's future.
Getting involved politically,
Right.
Making sure local and national leaders aren't just listening to industry lobbyists?
Yes. And being critical consumers of information. Learn about the science from actual scientists, not from corporate greenwashing campaigns.
It's about demanding systemic change, not just tweaking our personal habits.
Precisely. When you connect it all, you see this. Well, this system geared towards profit, often at the expense of the planet's long-term health. Understanding that is the first step.
Plastic. It's undeniably convenient, easy, but as we've hopefully shown today, easy and convenient doesn't always mean it's right or sustainable or even safe. We hope this deep dive gave you maybe a clearer picture, a different way to think about that plastic bottle or container.
And perhaps it leaves you with a question to think about. What other seemingly convenient part of modern life might be hiding a much more complex, maybe uncomfortable environmental truth?